And what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. As we continue our What Went Wrong series, this was a team that we definitely did not expect to be here, especially for how well they did last year. I mean, they won the whole league, didn't they? It is the LA Galaxy, and there are a ton of things to dive into as to what went wrong for them to miss the playoffs this year. So much so that we couldn't do it alone. So we brought back Ananda to chat way more in depth about it. How are we doing?
Could be better. Obviously, we just got gut punched in the last minutes of the Campeones Cup, which is the Galaxy's last chance to win anything this season. So this season basically has been a complete bust.
Yeah, tell me about it. And I was watching along with the scores there because it was late on the East Coast, and I was like, oh man, they're gonna do it. And then boof, 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 and I was like, oh
Yeah,
no.
typical Galaxy. We'll talk about it.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. But before we do that, we should chat about scarves. What do you want to show off today for us?
Actually, you know what? I was gonna show off the one on my wall, but then I forgot I had this little number on my
Ooh,
thing. I don't know if anyone pre-ordered FC 26, but I did off of GameStop 'cause I'm a huge FIFA nerd. And they gave me this little, so I don't know if this is like a first, like I don't know if you've seen this, but kind of cool. FC, EA Sports, FC. That's a nice little touch. Like I thought that was kind of cool. And I don't know if anyone's ever showed like a video game or team scarf at all, but so I thought that was pretty rad.
I love everything about that. I gave up FIFA quite a while ago. I think my last one was 22, but that
Smart
almost makes
man.
me want to go back and do it again.
But
But
smart man, because man, EA. Well, now the EA's just got bought out by the Saudis. That should be interesting to see where that goes. But man, like you could just get sucked. It's just a huge time suck. I mean, it's a
it
great game,
is.
but yeah,
It's fun, but that's exactly what it was. I just had no time to do it. I broke out my Galaxy scarf, even though
there you go.
begrudgingly,
There you go.
you know.
The other one I was gonna show was right there. That was probably one of the best memories I've had in the past, other than winning MLS Cup. That
Mhm.
was the 23. That was the scarf from the 23 Rose Bowl game in Pasadena,
Oh,
where
sick.
we basically it was an upset of LAFC. Ricky with that magical goal in the second half. So lung busting like 70-yard run. So
Mhm.
that scarf brings a good memory for sure if we're talking about like sentimental value.
Yeah, I love that. That's what a lot of this up here as well. We got different things for different interviews we've done and places I've gone. So it's always nice to have a sentimental touch, especially if it gives you good memories, right? Now, unfortunately, we have to go into the bad moments because that's what the series is. What went wrong is about the not so good. So I want to send it over to you. Kind of what is your first, number one A of what caused this season to be what it was?
Yeah, I think like sort of the meta overarching theme, Andrew, that I want to explain or put out there is I think it just this year has been a complete snowball effect. And what as I look back at this retrospectively, one thing just led into another. And I think the momentum of all of the things you don't want to do in a season, I think that just snowballed one into the other. So let me start with this. And I don't want to use this as an excuse or a crutch, but this is the fact, which is if you look at our team, I made this point the other day on the podcast, but if you look at the team that closed out, that tried to close out anyways against Toluca FC the other night, and you looked at the team that was on the pitch and closed out against you lot last year in the 24 MLS Cup, it's a night and day difference. So I think we've got to start there, which is the spine of this team was completely ripped out. And a lot of that was due to MLS salary cap rules. I mean, the the whole game, I was thinking to myself, damn it, like I wish I could see how this team could face Liga MX's opposition with Dejan Jovic at number 9, with Mark Delgado and Gaston Bergman in the midfield, with even John McCarthy as your starting keeper. I mean, say what you want about John McCarthy, he is a championship winning keeper, and he showed that throughout his career, right? Novak Mitrovic may be the more talented keeper, but John McCarthy knows how to win. And the problem with this team is right now they're still learning how to win, and a lot of that just has to do with personnel, man. Simply put, the Galaxy's team was gutted this year, and we kind of had to hit the reset button. We mortgaged our future in 24 for an MLS Cup. I would do that decision 10 times over, 100 out of 100 times. And I'm pretty sure that's what Will Kuntz was looking at when he basically pushed all the chips in the middle of the table and said, you know what, we've got to go for this. And shoot, like it worked out really well, right? But now we've got to go through these growing pains. And I think we've got to start with that. It's like this is not clearly not the same team, especially on top of Ricky Puig with an ACL injury, and lo and behold, he was out for the whole season. So I got to start there.
And you know what? I'm just going to piggyback right off of that because that's my number 1A as well. When we talked about this, um, I think we talked about it on our not so deep dive, but then Connor and I also followed up and talked about it again, probably when the Greg Vanny news was announced when they brought him back, and everybody was like,
Mm.
oh, blowing up, like, oh, why would they bring him back? And you look at the facts, and the facts are this team is nothing like the team that won in 2024, and it had nothing to do with Greg Vanny's coaching ability. It had everything to do with the fact that they could not make the team what it used to be, right? And you look at it, and you just mentioned it. Dejan Jovic is gone. Marky Delgado's gone. Brugman gone. You also let go of Jalen Neal, who had that future coming up if he was healthy, and Caceres to a lesser degree, I think. But these guys played generally significant minutes for you in the lead up to this cup run, and you replace them with bodies, right? Lucas Sanabria, Elijah Widener, Christian Ramirez, who was supposed to come off and be great, Zonka, and then Sean Davis, who you traded with Gaston Brugman and then didn't even make the roster, right? So you guys had players come in with to fill these holes, and they didn't match the performance of the guys who lost, right? And that's the big thing for me is bodies are bodies, but it's about the performance that they give you that makes the team what it is. And that was always going to be an uphill climb when you lost that much talent.
No, I look, I can't agree with you more. And honestly, like because of that, part of the problem coming into this season too, and I've been talking about it all year, was this team's mentality. And part of so for example, in the offseason, one of the big thing talking points was Mayashida having to come back on taking less salary. We saw some comments from Marco Royce not understanding why we had to basically trade or sell all of our players, and he didn't understand this league. I mean, there was like, Instagram videos and all that stuff of him talking about it, even in the press conference. So I think because of that, the consequence was the mentality just was never right this season. And that was capped off by a 16 game winless streak, like something that I would have never thought possible, and losing in all ways, anyways, any shape and size and color, giving up last minute goals in Philadelphia and San Diego, losing a game when not giving up a shot, not even a shot on goal, a shot, okay, at SKC, and giving up an own goal and losing that 1-0. And this is what I'm saying. It's snowballed from there, right? Like one thing led to the other. Joseph Paintsel wasn't 100% fit in the beginning of the season. We've had a lot of chopping and changing, and on top of that, we had to start CCC fairly early in the season, and clearly we were not ready for it. And unfortunately, the guys that Will Kuntz tried to bring in, or that he brought in, just didn't cut it. Like Christian Ramirez has been, I'm just going to say, he's been really a non-starter this year. He's been pretty awful. He like, beginning of the season there were some signs, but he's clearly dropped off, and he hasn't really gotten much playing time. You look at guys like Lucas Sanabria, hurt his collarbone in the second game of the season, Vancouver away, never got things going. And so we've had to slowly bring on academy players like Elijah Winder, or sorry, like Harbor Miller, younger guys like Elijah Winder, and also guys that needed to step up from the bench to the first team, which was guys like Mauricio Cuevas. So again, these are just these are not excuses. They're just compounding things that created that snowball effect that I was talking about.
Yeah, 100%. And there, a very wise person once told me that there's a difference between excuses and reasons, right? This isn't them trying to be like, oh, it's not my fault because look at all this stuff that happened. It's the reason why this happened, right? And you need to find a way to fix those in the next coming year. But do you have a second point maybe that isn't just the replacements? Because the players came in, they didn't perform though, right?
Yeah. Well, I talked about mentality a second ago, and like I said, I think this sort of one thing led to the other, and I just want to harp on this point, man, because the way we lost certain games, like I don't at some point you understand this because you're going through your coaching badges, etc. At some point, like you've got to create a resoluteness, a toughness in your team to not let those things happen. And just the way we lost certain games, man, like it's nothing else but mentality. I can't explain it any other way. And like I said, it's some of these young guys are still learning how to win. Novak Mitrovic is starting to try to come to his own as a good goalkeeper. He's a young keeper. He's prone to make mistakes. And you don't have those generals in midfield like Mark Delgado, Gaston Brugman, even a guy like you mentioned earlier, Martin Cáceres, who basically took Emi Garces under his wing last year and really kind of groomed him. And Emi's talked about that in a couple of pressers or a couple of interviews of how Martin really helped him and some of the younger Spanish speaking players on the team, like those off the field, off pitch moments, like those are really important. So I just think the togetherness was definitely a huge problem this year. So I don't know what else. Let me ask you, man. What do you, as an outsider looking in, what else did you think
Yeah,
was
so
another
the
culprit of the season?
yeah, the big one for me, and it kind of builds off the first one is kind of we talked about those players coming in and not really doing the job, but
Yeah,
also the players coming back took a huge step back from what they did in 2024, right? You look at Gabriel Peck as the prime example, right? He was a 30 goal contribution player in 2024 with Ricky Puig obviously supporting him and Dejan Jovic to play off of, but he went down to just 9 in 2025. And I know he was hurt to start the year and he kind of got off to a slow start, but he's not the only one, right? Paintsil, not so much of an impact, but he goes from 17 down to 11, right? And they, again, they both start with injuries, right? You started the
yeah,
season, I think, with like 6 games without designated players, which is you can't
yep,
do that in this league. You just
yep.
can't, right? Then you get Ricky Puig out for the year, right? He leaves 23 goal contributions on the table as a guy who has 700 touches more than anybody else in the league. Marco Royce comes back in there, and he didn't do poorly this year, right? But you're leaving, he came in with 13 goal contributions. He's not nearly as big of a facilitator, and the defensive side of the ball. You just talked about Emi Garces, right? Like this guy, I after I watched him MLS Cup, I'm thinking he's going to be a Defender of the Year player, right? And we talked about that.
Yep.
He barely broke 1,500 minutes, and they have the second most goals conceded in the West and third most in the league. I mean, just everybody who had this huge, huge role to play in 2024, all starting with Ricky Puig's massive injury, they all took a big step back this year, and that's huge. If you have all of those goals that you're not bringing back, you're not getting results, and you're not winning games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, part of that has to just do with the lack of continuity from last year. I mean, you don't have, a guy like Ricky Puig to slot in and behind the back four to JP and Peck, right? A lot of that has to do with personnel. And I was gonna say, I mean, you kind of made me trigger a thought, which is, I mean, quite simply, man, like 1B, absence of Ricky Puig. Like, I'm sorry, you could say whatever you want about this guy. Maybe this year proved that he is an MVP of the league. Like without Ricky Puig, like some people judge MVP as if you take this guy out of the team, what is the team? You kind of saw it this year, right? Now, granted, that's maybe not a fair comparison because you're also losing Dejan Jovic, who was a DP, and then he's now getting paid DP money, and he's showing what he can do in this league. And then Mark Delgado is obviously killing it, right? So maybe that's not a fair thing to say, but man, like DP utilization, as you know, is huge in this league, and you've got one of the best stars in MLS out for the whole season. So my 1B is simply like no Ricky Puig, man. That's huge. Like that's absolutely massive.
And it's so funny that you mentioned that too, because I was thinking about that just being one of my options, and I thought we can go a little bit deeper than that, but everything comes back to that, right? You take this guy who was such a huge part of the way that you played your game, and you take him away, it's going to make a massive hole there, but it also shows the importance of the U22 and the TAM slots, right?
Yep.
I forget who I was talking about this with, just on the same series just a couple of episodes ago, but it used to be back in the day where one designated player was you had Thierry Henry or David Beckham. Yeah, you're top of your league, you're top of your conference. We'll see in the playoffs, whatever, right? Then it got to the point where I was like, okay, well, if you have all three performing, maybe you have one or two that aren't great, but you have a U22 that can pick it up. Now you can't even have one of those players missing and a bad TAM player, or your entire team falls apart. Like the levels that have grown in roster construction in this league are massive, and it all comes back like you just mentioned, the three players, right? Ricky Puig, who was a designated player, hurt. Jovic, who was U22, gone, and then Delgado, who's a TAM player. You're missing one of each.
Yeah.
Your team falls apart. It's crazy how impactful some of these players can be and how important it is to get it right.
Yeah, and especially in a league like MLS where I mean, you basically have to get like depth is super important in this league. And we just didn't have the depth to cover all those holes. Like I said, we're trying to bring through young players. And It's not like a Seattle where clearly they have a very like Schmetzer has a very well-groomed system where he gives enough time to all these players like that just we developed them really well in VCFC in the academy or in MLS Next Pro, but in terms of giving them the playing time, like they this is for Harbor Miller's first full season like as a first team player. You got guys like Elijah Winder coming through from USL, which is a completely different league. This is a huge step up for guys like that. And so they need time, right? Like things don't happen magically. When you sign two DPs, like now granted, we hit a home run with both of them, but DPs, you have a different level of expectation. But when you talk about the fringe players and the depth that you need, it's crazy. And this is like the nail in the coffin for this point, which is last year in MLS Cup, you had Ricky Pooch being injured, but you had Gaston Brugman waiting in the wings to give you an MLS MVP performance. This year against Toluca, you look at that bench, and there's really no offense to the guys on the bench. They're just clearly not as experienced and a veteran like Gaston Brugman, for example.
Yeah, and that matters, right? Because you need experience to win games. It's very, very rare to see teams go out with a bunch of academy kids and one or two leaders and then say, okay, go get it. Right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. So listen, I think we've hit a lot of really good points here and a lot of really good reasons as to why they're there. 2026 is around the corner. You guys have found your way into Champions Cup again, which is fantastic. Before you get there, what is the number one thing this team needs to change to get better and be more competitive next year?
Yeah, I think no, first and foremost, we got to get healthy. We've got to get healthy. We've got to get guys like I think Marco Royce is going to be shut down for the rest of the season. We've got to get those guys healthy. And then the offseason like is really quick, especially with I think CCC starts in early February, February 3rd to 5th is week 1. And then I think the MLS just released their offseason calendar, and there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, Andrew. I think like decisions on extensions and options, I think start at the end of November. So those things are going to come quick and fast. So I think I'm pretty sure Will Kuntz is already on the phone. He's already working. He's already on his whiteboard trying to figure that out. So that might be just a prerequisite, but I have to state that because that's super important for this team. But so it's number one, getting healthy. And if you're talking to me about like personnel and roster, the one thing that this team has lacked, not even last year, not even the year before, I would say the last decade, ever since, I mean, lo and behold, like the AJ and Omar days, Andrew, which is we have not been number one. Like we have been very deficient on set pieces. We've been very deficient on transition defense, and we've been very deficient on 1v1 defenders. Like we don't have very many good 1v1 defenders. Emilio Garces is probably your best bet because he has that recovery pace. Like he reminds me a lot of like Yamar Nuhu, right? They're beasts physically. So I would say like wherever that is on the pitch, whether that's in the midfield or that's in the defense, we need really, really good transition players, especially good 1v1 defenders. I think that is a skill that this team lacks. And because the ceiling's really high for this team offensively, I'm not worried about the offense. I'm worried about the defense. Like, we don't need to be an elite defense, but we need to be a good enough defense to win MLS Cup, which is what we showed in 24. So I think that's, for me, skill sets wise, we need guys with, like I said, a motor, good 1v1 defending, and can defend in the transition because the way Greg Vanney likes to play, he likes to create those overloads and time advantages in the opposition's half. So when we turn the ball over, we can get exposed, right? That's sort of one of the drawbacks with the way Greg likes to play. And so we just need a couple of those players. Ideally, a center back would be great because I don't know where Maya is contractually or what he's thinking. I mean, he's clearly taking a step back this year, especially with his fitness. So we'll see, man. But like I said, I think for me, it's that defensive side. We need maybe one or two really good defensive players.
Yep, and I agree with you there. I think that was the first thing that I thought too. Is like, man, if you're going to improve anywhere, getting players healthy is going to be important, but you got to fix that back line, man. You can't give up that many goals again and expect to win. So, I agree with you completely. But Ananda, thanks so much for being here. We really enjoyed having you on and chatting about this again. Hopefully, we don't have to do this in 26. We can only do the previews instead. But why don't you take a little bit of time, tell people where to find you and what you do?
Yeah, you guys can find me. I always say you can follow me, block me, or stalk me. At Ananda Galaxiana is my handle. I don't know if you're gonna put it in the description or whatever, but it's my name, like the little thing that says right there, ANNDA Galaxiana, because I am a co-host on a podcast called Lacuna Galaxiana. You guys can find us on all the socials. That's the handle as well at Lacuna Galaxiana. You can find us on YouTube. If any of your listeners are interested in how badly the Galaxy are doing, you guys can find us there. We do shows every Monday and Thursday, and then of course you can find us on Goals TV as well, which I know that's where you can find Andrew in
Yes.
certain times of the year. So
Yes, we will be there as well. So, listen, everybody, go over there for your LA news because smile through the pain they do. I keep seeing some clips there, and you guys are getting through it. And like I said, I do believe next year will be better. So, thanks so much again for being here. We really appreciate you. Thanks everybody for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.